welcome back everybody to Hod My Jacket.
Indeed.
Norrie, somebody once asked me what Hod My Jacket means and why I chose, or why we chose that name for the show, and I was trying to explain that when you ask somebody to hod your jacket, it's just because you're about to go into a fist fight.
That's exactly it.
So that's what it means, anyway.
That's what it means. Hod my jacket, I'm going to do something really important here. It's like going into a wrestling. You know, when a boxer goes in, he's wearing a gown. Yeah. And he takes off the gown, he hands it to the trainer, he's just left with his gloves on. That's what we're talking about here.
That's it, yeah.
Something like that. Anyway, welcome everybody. Thanks for joining us today. Gordon, I'll just go over some of the responses from last week. Interesting. At DBG, that's all I've got for this one. DBJ, quote from Craig Murray on X: "A day I shall never forget. Speaking at the UN in Geneva in favour of Scottish independence, I stated that the UK is a force for evil in the world. And people from all over the globe interrupted with spontaneous applause. Well said, Mr. Craig Murray, putting voice to the thoughts of many, not the majority, of peoples of the world, not just here in Scotland." More on that in the show, I guess. Rachel Taylor, this is interesting because I think Rachel's hit this in the head. Companies like SSEN are planning all these giant pylons. We were talking about this last week, and I'll do more on this again, to steal energy from Scotland before their grab is stopped by independence. But will independence stop this grab by the UK left in the hands of the present SNP? They will let it go on. They are at best not stopping it, and at worst, MPs like Kate Forbes and John Swinney are encouraging it and going in about exporting it and being paid, but we're going to be dying from the cancer coming from them. Strong stuff.
There's one thing about that struck me as inaccurate coming from Kate Forbes, and that is that we'll get paid for any of this. We're not getting paid for any of this.
No.
The companies that are exploiting these resources are getting paid for it. The only thing we have really is license fees from North Sea oil fields. Mm-hmm. That's it. There isn't anything else. We don't get any revenue from any of it.
That's right, Gordon. We're getting gaslit right, left, and centre. Can I just say on this particular point, I took the opportunity. The weather was good. I went up the hills of Monrose, bagged 3 Monrose. When I was at the top, this is the third time I've been up the Monrose in the last, 6-8 weeks. And every time you get to the top, Gordon, your view is absolutely ruined by these monstrous wind farms. They are everywhere. I can assure you. You look like north, west, east, wherever they can get their trucks in. And the worst thing about it is they're taking down the trees to put these things in place. I thought we were going for a net zero. We need trees if that's the case. Why are you taking them down? It is awful, Gordon. And groups are now appearing all over the Highlands. Ordinary people are getting off their arses and going to these meetings. But here's the problem, Gordon. I don't know if it matters or not, but the Tories are in there. And the Tories are stirring up all this stuff about how they would change it. And it's a scandal to our countryside. Not forgetting that they're behind this in Westminster.
Yes, of course they are. But they like to jump on the bandwagon and make it seem like it's their cause because they think it buys them votes and they think that it makes them seem popular. So, yep, it's just opportunism, political opportunism.
It is. Jack McGuire says, "Brilliant show again, lads. Keep up the good work. Never stop." I don't think we will, Gordon. We like it too much, don't we?
Yes, I'm enjoying this too much, Norrie. Yeah.
Yeah, there's one here from Jane Reid. Sorry, Jane. I think this one's against me, but I'll try and get through it. I'm from the Central Belt, and I'm more concerned about what's happening in every area of Scotland than some football team or other. A lot of us do care very much about the events that are happening in Scotland, and the sooner we achieve decolonization followed by independence, the better. There's a couple on this, and I do apologise. I can only report and tell what I see in my area, Gordon. I'm not privy to what's happening in the Central Belt. But listen, this is what the comments section's for. Tell us what it's like where you are. Tell us the problems you've got as well. Tell us your hopes and fears. Put them in the comments and you'll get read out. Just carrying on. Great show. Thanks again. Please mention that it's not only the Highlands and Islands, pylons, battery storage, and wind turbines, and bloody timber forests. Next time you are in southern Scotland, take a look at Stirlingshire, Lanarkshire, D&G, and the borders. They are all over there too. Again, Gordon, we're not disputing that. We're just taking this as a template. I've always said that these windmill companies were not building to combat global warming, but it is for money for big corporations. 1960, Eagle Eyes is bang on with that, I think, Gordon.
I think that's inevitable because of the neoliberal system that operates in the UK. It's enabling profit taking at every level, no matter what it is. So, including renewable energy. But renewable energy can't take precedence over the natural environment. It has to work in concert with it. And if it's not, then it's not green. Basically, it's a money-making operation.
That's right. That's right. Exactly. Thanks for mentioning the other option of Liberate Scotland candidates, which stand on independence, nothing less, nothing else. On this programme, we've mentioned all political parties that are pro-independence, bar none. So no problem, Greg. There's some great show as usual. Oh, this is the one. Scotland has no self-governance. Good show as usual. This is Brian Thompson. Thanks for this one, Brian. Scotland has no self-governance, as any decision made in Holyrood can be overturned by the Internal Market Bill or the Section 35 and 37. The points made on vaping were inaccurate. I 100% agree it should not be sold to kids at all. Glycerine is a type of sugar alcohol. It is not regulated, as it has not been shown to harm the human body in normal concentrations and is naturally found in the body. Popcorn lung, which you mentioned, Gordon, originated as a term describing the damage done to the lungs of asbestos workers.
That's right.
It was hijacked by the tobacco companies and was seen as a way to combat the growing trend of vaping instead of smoking. I agree with the premise of what was said, but not the way you said it. Vaping includes nicotine, which is a highly addictive substance. The addiction is the reason children should not be sold vaping products. As such, there is so far no correlation that vaping causes cancer.
No, there isn't. That's true. That's all true.
Not all vaping products are equal, though. And without tighter regulation, there could be any amount of harmful products added. That's the thing. On a final note, he says on a final note, sorry, Gordon, I'll just finish this and I'll let you in. Honestly, I will. I'll just finish his message, right? On a final note, bacon consumption has been shown to have a direct increase in the risk of cancer. I do not promote the use of vaping products in any way, nor that of bacon.
Well, thank you for the corrections, because that does give us accuracy in the reporting where we maybe missed it. So apologies for inaccuracies in our reporting.
Yeah. So that's what comments are for. It's for getting back and putting us right. We can't get things right all the time, Gordon.
Exactly. We'll get them wrong.
I know. If Scotland were recognised as never fully a partner in the 1707 Union, it could claim that the UK treaties did not automatically bind it because it was never a free co-sovereign state. In that case, Scotland could use sovereign succession arguments to reject certain treaties inherited from the UK. Renegotiate others, trade, military, and borders. Establish itself as a fully independent treaty actor. If it is proved that Scotland is a colony and the UK never existed, what would it mean for all those UK treaties? This is massive. It's got a point, hasn't it?
Yeah, I mean, the interesting thing about this is that what your correspondent is claiming there is that we could, even before independence, as an existing state, not enact any of these English treaties and not abide by them because they're not lawful in international law. They don't apply to Scotland. They apply only to England. And England basically, after 1707, assumed the new name of Great Britain, but it was the English state. It was the English Parliament, unchanged, with Scotland added to its retinue of territories. So it's England, basically, that that has these treaties, but they've been forced upon us. They've been forced.
Indeed. And on that, Gordon, we're seeing coming down the road a brick card. Have you noticed they're calling it a brick card, not a UK card or a card UK?
It's
They've
not even a
changed
card. It's not even a card. It's electronic. It's going to be in your phone.
It doesn't matter, Gordon. It doesn't matter what it is, but what they're calling it for the press and the media, it's not UK. Can you see the UK retreating from this because they smell something? The UN, the UK is not an entity. Now they're going back to Britain. Here's the thing, Gordon. I'm never British. In a geographical term, maybe, but I'm a Scot. And what you just said before that is true. This will not hold up because we are Scots and we've got different laws.
Well, the other thing, Norrie, is if you recall, before the referendum in 2014, your driver's license did not have a Union flag on it. And then suddenly, after the referendum, a Union flag was plastered on every driver's license in the UK. And that's something a lot of people object to this day and cover them up with tires.
I tell you, Gordon, you're absolutely right. It's small things that really anger people.
Yeah.
And if we focus on these small things, we could get a whole tsunami created here for independence.
It's all about creating the illusion of one country, which doesn't actually exist, one unitary state, which doesn't exist.
Mm-hmm.
Do we have any further in the post
Yes, there is. Anne Rayner says, just by pointing out that the land and resources of Scotland legally belong to the Scottish people, and no one has the right to sell any of that to big businesses which are profiting and exploiting them. Once independent, we will be entitled to reclaim these without any compensation. I think this is free ports and wind farms and all the rest of the destruction going on everywhere. Why are we not stopping this now? Why have we not got something in place now to stop all this?
We do. We have environmental protection laws which could prevent things from being built on land and on Scottish territory if they can be proved to be detrimental to the environment, or if the regulations made it impossible for those entities to operate the kind of industries they're planning because of emission or pollution or whatever, or environmental destruction.
Well, Gordon, when I climb in Munros, I'm at a position where I can climb 3,000 feet and I can look down on these things. When you're on the road, you can't see them. Nobody really knows how much is going on in this country.
That's right.
Devastation. And when you talk to fellow climbers, fellow walkers, they look down and you can see on their face they are absolutely appalled. Scotland, I think the thing is, a lot of people now climbing hills are doing it to escape, to get away from the mund. When you can't even escape to the hills, but you see these massive, and we're talking huge things, Gordon. These things are bigger than the London Eye. They're massive, and they're group. And when you look across from Loch Clooney, where I was, there's 4 big patches of them, and you go down the road, and there's more, and there's roads going up, and there's more. It is unbelievable the damage that's getting done. And we said last week, are we in the vestiges of the last dying embers of this union? And everybody is trying to get their piece of the action before they get turfed out. I think it could be. I think it could be.
Yeah, there is a scramble at the moment to build as much power infrastructure as possible, mainly to funnel energy south of the border, where it's desperate. Instead of building their own power systems offshore, they're inflicting them upon us instead because, well, they're out of sight and out of mind. Nobody's going to notice that they're up in these glens because most people driving through don't see them.
That's right.
People who climb the mountains and the hills do see them, and they're everywhere. They're hidden from roads and from lowland sites, but once you get to the top of the mountains, you can see them in all directions. And it's spreading like a disease across the Highlands. It's far too much. We're overproducing energy for our own consumption. And it's obvious that the power companies see a massive market in England for the power. And they're not going to charge minimum amounts of money for what is essentially free energy. They're going to charge premium rates. It's not going
I,
to be cheap for England to buy the energy, but it's going to them.
I,
It's not
I
going
tell you,
to.
I tell you what, Gordon. When you see this, the sums of money these companies are making, it's eye-watering. We're talking about billions of pounds of electricity they're creating. Now, if you go up the hills again, I'll use another analogy. Over the years, the English, the Westminster system, because we didn't have any parliament before 1990, whatever, um, dams are at every loch up there.
Yep.
Dams. They've been doing it for centuries, Gordon, and we've just, because we've climbed it and we've been there all our lives, we think dams are a great thing. Scotland doesn't get any of that money from these dams. That
No,
that power goes down south, and it always has done, to make money for somebody else.
yeah. And many,
But
I was going to say, many of these hydro schemes are over 100 years old. They go back to the beginnings of the power infrastructure. That's going back into the 19th century. They
mhm,
realized generate power from moving water if they just dammed it up. And who had the most water? Us, basically.
mhm,
We had the heat, we had the potential to build artificial locks high up
yeah,
and then have the water go downhill and generate power. It all seems great, and it probably was okay back then because it produced power that was needed with a smallish footprint on the landscape. But it was on a landscape which was already ravaged by deforestation, by the
mhm.
sheep farmers, and the incomers who came in and levelled it all to make these sheep farms. So you have one set of devastation on top of another.
That's right.
And
That
by the
is
time
exactly right.
you think, well, Scotland's already ruined, it doesn't matter if we ruin it a bit more.
It doesn't matter because we're so far away. It's like Doon nuclear. They put it up here because it's just them. They don't matter. Well,
Geneva
actually,
was
they do.
highly experimental and potentially dangerous at the time.
Yeah, I know.
Knew that.
Grunard, Anthrax Island. What have we put up with, Gordon? No
There-
more. We
well,
can't put up with any more.
there are also proposals from the Labour government at the moment to build more nuclear power stations in Scotland. Now,
Yeah,
we've already eradicated our nuclear power stations because they weren't needed, they weren't safe, they were far too expensive, and
correct.
Labour wants to build more of them. The wind farm's not enough.
I know. I know. It doesn't make sense to us all. It doesn't make sense. I'll just go through some of these, the last of the responses. The UN matter is not about UK news. It's about self-governance. It's not about political parties, correct? It's about libertarian movements. We are so brainwashed. Even this channel is partly brainwashed by the colonial mind. I don't think people realise what is going on in the real world. Well, we try our best to figure out what's going on in the real world. And if you don't like what we're talking about, perhaps maybe this isn't the podcast for you.
I find it hard to believe actually that anyone thinks that we are in some way brainwashed, by whatever, by colonialism. I mean, everybody in Scotland is partially brainwashed by colonialism, and it takes a great effort of will to stop thinking that way.
Yeah.
It's like having a religious epiphany where you suddenly realize something that you thought that you believed in was true isn't true. And you have to think, right, well, what am I replacing that with? I'm replacing that with a belief in myself and my fellow Scots, because that's what we have to believe in. Because our
Yeah.
politicians, we can't believe in them anymore either.
No, no, Gord, you're bang on. And I think in every post-colonial theory document that's ever been written, when you strive towards independence, it's the people that do it. The people get so annoyed. We used to get 2014. We're trying to feel our way around this, and how do we get to independence? And we put our trust in a political party. When that political party failed, we got our fingers burnt, and now we don't go to political parties. This is the process. Um, and every person watching this is really important, Gordon. We are setting the agenda on this show by talking about the UN and colonisation. No other people are doing it. Even other pro independence bloggers are dismissing this. So what we need people to do is share and share and share this content till we get to 10,000, till we get to 20,000. Because I tell you why. Because at that point, political parties start sniffing around. Where's the votes? Oh, they're all over there. UN, colonisation. This is where the BBC get their news. They'll come following us, Gordon. They already watch us. We know that. We know people watch us. We need people to share, because the bigger the number, it's not for us, Gordon. It's not for our egos or anything like that. My God, I want independence, and I don't care about ego and anything like that. I just want independence. But if you share this and share it and share it, it means that the people watching us will have to take notice. What is being said? What is attracting people to this show? Why are people reacting like that? We've got to do it, and that's people power. That's all you have to do. If you can't get off your seat, surely you can press the share button, the like button. That's all you have to do.
Norrie, I know that you ran a podcast yesterday with 4 guests, including Professor Alf Baird, Sarah Salyers, and was it Alex Thorburn, I think?
Thorburn. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So you had a very good panel there. But one of the things that I remember, particularly from your podcast yesterday, was a comment from Sarah Salyers. And she was describing what happened in 2014 and how the Scots people felt while they were campaigning. And she said it was very optimistic. It was joyful. People were flying their flags, they were painting their faces. She said, but it wasn't really about that. It was about the emotion of the time. But she said the one thing that we don't have now, that we did have back then, was this naivety, this lack of experience of doing something like this, and the hope that it was going to provide the liberation that we all wanted. Now, obviously, it didn't work because we were naive. We didn't expect the dirty tricks, and when they came, and when the referendum was effectively stolen because the British state had all the media, we had not even a single newspaper to put our case, and there was a vast amount of bias towards voting no. So we were naive back then, but as Sarah Salyers pointed out, we're not naive anymore. We're much more somber, much more serious, and far more experienced than we've ever been in the process of how to fight for liberation. And that is what's essentially so different about now compared to 2014.
Yeah, we've moved on. We've been bitten hard, bitten sore about the process and who we trusted. And trust is a big word in all this, Gordon, because we put 56 MPs down to Westminster. We trusted the SNP to get us, not just go down there, put their feet under the table, not there to dismiss independence, to be good parliamentarians. Now, when we look back at that, we think, what? They were corrupted. But I keep going back to this, and I said it last week, and I'll say it again. This is the decolonisation process. You have to go through all this hurt, this pain, to get to the end point. And I tell you, the last few miles, I can assure you, when you come down off Monroe, the last kilometres are the unbelievably most difficult. And you want to get to the car. It's the same with this. It's going to be really difficult. We're going to be fighting against each other. Our head's going to be mixed up. Have we got the bandwidth to understand what's going on? Yes, we have. Have we got the capacity to do the right thing? And one thing I think was missing yesterday, on Wednesday when I'd done this interview on this UN thing, I thought there is an ideal opportunity, Gordon, for political parties, the new emerging political parties, which Alf Baird says are crucial. They come through, they are the new parties. They are the ones that are altruistic and from the people. If Liberation.Scot don't mesh up with Liberate.Scot, the party and others, then we could be missing a trick here, because we need that snowball to gather as it rolls down the hill. We need everybody singing from the same hymn sheet. And I just thought there was no talk about other political parties coming through, although Alf is at pains to say you need to be aware of who's coming through and support them.
It's funny you should say that, because I listened very carefully to your podcast because I was watching the recording of it yesterday. But one of the things that stood out for me related to what you've just said was a comment made by Craig Murray, the diplomat. Now, Craig Murray pointed out that for the first time, and he emphasized this, for the first time, Alba has finally cracked 5% in the polls, which means technically that if that continues, then Alba will pick up seats in the next Scottish general election for the first time. Now, that is the very first sort of early stage green shoots of something new happening in the political world, where a party of independence, which has so far been shut out, is finally kind of crossed a threshold. Now, Alba, in my mind at the moment, still a little bit too timid and a little bit too much mired in the unionist mindset, the colonial mindset. But if they manage to get some seats in the next general election, there will be Alba members in that parliament. And if they are radical enough, then that is good, because the more of those types of MSPs we have, the better we are positioned to argue that the political classes should be participating with Liberation Scotland and the UN in the process of decolonisation, and should be endorsing it, not ignoring it and pretending it's not happening, which is what's happening just now.
I've got a problem with that, Gordon. Polls. I've got a problem with polls. I don't believe them. First and foremost, and secondly, I interviewed Kenny McCaskill on Caledon back in the day, and I asked him, "Does he think Scotland's no, sorry, do you think Scotland Scottish MPs should take the oath?" He goes, "Yes." I said, "Wait a minute, taking the oath to a thought the debate's moved on, Kenny." And I asked him, "Did he put party before country?" And he says, "I am the leader of my party. I have to look after the party." That tells me, Gordon, he's not ready to move in. And I asked Angus Brendan McNeill on Twitter many's a time, and he's never answered back. Are you going to go into a coalition with Liberate Scotland? Nothing.
Tumbleweed.
Nothing.
It's
So if they get
because,
into the parliament, Gordon, this is my last point in this. If they get in the parliament, what do we expect to see change?
yeah, there is that. And one of the things I was going to say is the only, at the moment, party that I know of independence which doesn't fall into that colonial mindset is the ISP, Colette Walker's
Well,
party. They have not
and,
been.
and there's three of them. There's Sovereignty as well. Anyone that hasn't heard of Sovereignty, go on their website. They are coming out with amazing stuff. And Eye for Eye, Indie for Independence, Eva Comrie and Alan Patrick. These guys, don't forget them. It's not just ISP. There's a lot of them coming in the sides.
Indie for Indie is non-party members who are standing as candidates for MSPs in the list. These are individuals. So it's interesting that you've got individuals allying themselves with the ISP and with Sovereignty in a block. So this
Yeah,
is the of some collaboration, and
yeah.
this is Kenny McCaskill's missing out on, as you
Yes.
put, right? If he had a bit more savvy, he might think, well, maybe we should go with this because that's going to increase the appeal to the voters, and give them more choices and candidates as well, because not every one of the small parties can afford to stand a candidate in every region. So
That's right.
we're doing it.
Yeah. And, it makes sense. If you're for Scotland, an independent Scotland, sooner rather than later, then you will do everything in your power to maximise that vote. And
Yeah.
that means coming together. I go back to this post-colonial theory, and if anyone's getting bored with it, you shouldn't be. You should be absolutely excited by this, because this could win us the liberation our country needs. If you look at the processes, you see that these emerging parties become very, very big indeed in the independence campaign, along with disparate other groups. And I mentioned that folk are coming out of their houses, going to meetings on these wind farms, transmission lines, all sorts of things. People are not going to the recognised political processes, but doing it themselves. This is typical, Gordon, of the colonisation route, the decolonisation route, sorry.
there are various
It's
stages.
exciting times. It really is, if we can play our cards right and get everything sorted.
Well, there's a couple of things here to unpack. It's interesting what you were just saying about people, sort of coming out of their homes to protest against things like wind farms being imposed on them. This is what happens when people see the results of political decisions which adversely affect them locally. So when something starts to bother them, they think, hang on a minute, I never voted for this, and they're building this thing right
Yeah.
outside the back garden. I never wanted that. Suddenly it's important to them. And what we have to get over to people is that voting for, not voting for, but achieving liberation in any way that we can allows us to stop that from happening. All of those local problems that people suddenly see around them suddenly wake up to the fact that it's going to really detrimentally affect their lives. Those things can be stopped, nipped in the bud, ceased completely. Because once, as somebody pointed out in a letter at the beginning of your programme, once Scotland has declared its independence, all of the properties which have been essentially annexed by our neighbours and all of these international corporations belong to us. They revert back to us. And no law, there's no recourse by these corporations to demand compensation for that. Politics
Well,
outside commercialism.
we have to be careful, Gordon, because in Honduras, free ports were put in Honduras, not at the behest of the people, but the corrupt governments that were there. Now that Honduras is saying we don't want you anymore, there's massive, massive litigation against Honduras from these massive. Some of these companies own more money than the country itself.
Yeah.
It is very difficult. Alf Baird said as well, the remnants of colonialism will live long into the centuries. Look at Ireland, still speaks in English most of the time. I was in Cork last May. They've got an English market. I would have thought you would have changed that. As soon as you got your independence, you would have changed that. The name suggests something else, but they kept it. And a lot of people are really unhappy about it. I don't like the English market, but that's what it's called to get used to it. The colonial baggage stays with you for a long, long time. That's why we have to get independence very, very quickly. Very quickly.
Are aspects to this. Now, political independence means that you get back your territory. That doesn't mean that you kick the corporations out. It just means that whatever has been given to them by the English government in terms of land or the use of it is rescinded, and we can write new contracts or new licenses which produce revenue for us, so that if these corporations stay, they actually pay their dues, they pay their taxes, and they pay their license fees to continue their operations there. That's normal business. So you're not chasing them out. You're just taking control of your own land and your resources, and you're telling them if they want to operate here, these are the rules. The other thing that I wanted to separate out was the emotional and I think the mindset part of this. Sarah Salios was went into great detail about this, about the whole mindset. We've been colonized for 300 years. We've all grown up, generation after generation, believing that we're not as good as our cousins in England, that we're not as wealthy, we're not as smart, we don't have the resources, we depend on them. And we've had this rammed into our heads, programmed into us from birth, that we're dependent. And in that case, if you suddenly stop being dependent, there is a tendency then to want to depend on something else, to look for something else to shield you. And this is the most difficult jump of all, that mental leap from being colonized, from being dependent or thinking that you are dependent, to realizing that you're not and that you're perfectly capable of running your own affairs. And that's a jump in confidence that at the moment is difficult to achieve.
Well, one thing happened in our lifetimes that let the genie out of the bottle. 2014. We suddenly realised a lot of things. You alluded to them earlier on. We thought the broadcasting people behind the cameras were friendly and cuddly and cosy. They turned out to be absolute vicious destroyers of freedom.
We thought they'd be fair, Norrie. We thought they'd be fair, and they just weren't.
But they weren't.
Be
And we
impartial.
thought the SNP would be fair and on our side. We've learned the hard way, Gordon.
Yeah.
And once you learn these hard lessons, it toughens up our people, and they start looking for answers. This is what Alex Orban was saying. When we go to the UN and we deliberate, you cannot imagine how strong Scotland's case is to the UN. But we must get there, and we must get support from other people around the world. I think that's the next step, Gordon. We need to get people from different countries rubber stamping Scotland's bid at the
I
UN.
believe, I believe that that is one of the next steps that Alex pointed out, that the process involves further meetings with diplomatic delegations from supportive countries so that we have written support from those other nations who are members of the UN who say we support Scotland's bid to have its status changed to a non-self-governing territory so that it can enter into the process of decolonisation at a later date. It's not a fast process, we all know that. But so long as we know we're on the journey, and that it will happen eventually, that is probably more important than anything else.
Well,
Rushing
it,
it's probably not going to happen.
yeah, it depends what journey we're on. From Geneva and that meeting that the delegation had, I would have thought it might have been a bit more prudent to go around with a handheld camera, a phone even, and go into meetings with African delegates who are supposed to be there. We don't know, we haven't seen them. We need to
Yeah,
see the handshakes. We need to see the people. We need to see that Scotland is joining forces with others. But what we
uh,
get is talking heads. All we get is a guy talking about broadcasting how bad it is, and then there's somebody else talking about Scotland's case. We need more. We need more to fuel the desire of the Scottish people, to get them excited. We need more, I'm afraid. It's all very well wearing your kilt, Craig Murray, but a kilt opens a door. It's what you say and how you say it and how you project yourself is more of a Scotsman than what you wear, I would argue. So
well,
in the future, Gordon, I think for the next UN, we need to get film. We need to get actual. Because if this was the BBC, would film everything and put it out and propagandize the lot of us. We've
no,
got to do
no,
the same.
yeah, I just want to add to what you were saying that there was something missing from what was put out, and what was put out, as you say, was people talking. So Craig Murray, Alf Baird, Sarah Salyers, talking individually from their homes about what happened. But what we didn't see, as you pointed out, were the other delegates from the other countries in the room. But not only the handshakes and actually saying that they were there so that we knew they were there, but also interviewing them and saying to them, what's your reaction to this? Isn't this a surprise to you? They would probably have said, yeah, we're really shocked. We didn't realise this. But we're hearing it secondhand. We're not hearing it from them. We need a film crew there when these
Yes,
events are going off, don't we? And we need somebody to interview the other delegates from the other nations so that people back home can see that support. That it isn't some nebulous thing that we talk about third hand. That did happen.
that's
We can
right.
show it happening. And I agree with you, Norrie. I think that was the one vital thing that was completely missing from that effort. Now, obviously, this was a political first step. There might have been some constraints on what could be shown, but in future times, we definitely need to prove to our people back home that this process is happening. These are real people. This is what they're saying about it. And these are the people who are supporting us. These are the diplomats. These are the nations. That kind of thing is very powerful. Until they see it, most people are going to go, well, yeah, they're not going to be committed, but they will be when they see that it's working.
I think so, Gordon. I think the problem is that those who are not yet convinced about colonisation and decolonisation, that theory and that argument, will then rest back. Well, you've got to prove it. I still don't believe, because the arguments are still there, that Scots were a big part of this empire, part of the slave trade. You know, you've got to accept that Scotland played its part in the empire. So
There's one,
for them on that side, it's very hard to get them over
no,
until you see other countries.
there is one thing I want to add to what you just said about Scotland participating in empire. A few Scots owned plantations. A few individual people aided in the British Empire. But
Yes.
there was no support in Scotland for it. There was
No.
nobody saying, yeah, let's all get involved in the slave trade. It was one or two individuals. And those are
I
the
know.
individuals, incidentally, who we have statues to in the city I'm sitting in right now. Those colonial exploiters, individuals, business people, magnates, those were the ones who aided and abetted the English state and its empire. It wasn't the ordinary Scots, and that's something we have to remember and make clear.
Yes.
You individuals.
All I'm saying though, Gordon, is there's some people who have not yet come over to the colonisation
Yeah,
argument because they rely on the history they've been told. They walk down streets in Glasgow and they see Buchanan and they see these beautiful buildings and you think, that's a great thing that happened. Glasgow is built, Glasgow architecture is fantastic because of colonisation.
yep.
You know what
Because
I
of
mean? So we have to get people out of this. And you're right. It's only one or two fat cats, the Tories of their time. My goodness, Jardine and Matheson were opium merchants in their day. You know,
absolutely.
no, get them out.
Yeah,
Let's. How dare they sully the name of Scotland? They're not part. They're not who we are, but yet
no,
they're part of
no.
our history. You know, because the history has been written so that they can be up there. It's
There
the
were
wrong history we're learning.
there were individual Scots in charge of rubber plantations, pardon me, in Burma, all the way up to and through World War II, who were
Mhm.
still there. Individuals who owned plantations where they were paying their coolie workforces tiny amounts of money, subsistence wages,
Yep.
to the rubber. And that went on all the way up to World War II and until just afterwards, when suddenly it collapsed and the British pulled out of places like Burma and out of Singapore. And when they
Yeah.
did, the local people took these things over. But up until that point, there might have been individual Scots landowners or plantation owners in those places, but they were individuals. There weren't
Yeah.
gang Scots there doing it. There were individuals. So I think we need to keep it in perspective.
Yeah, we do. But we're always happy to promote those that do Scotland good, like Robert Burns and others, good Scots. But we've got a mixed bag, and we've got to identify that. We've got to recognise it. It's,
Well,
Scotland's
yeah,
just like any other country. Ireland had the same. Ireland's a colony. Nobody would argue that Ireland's a colony, but they had people during the empire that were ruthless, just as bad as us.
yeah. We're not just collaborating; they were making money out of it.
So, but the thing is, Gordon, we have to convince people. And I think we're on the same page here because if we can get that documented evidence that we're moving moving towards the UN with backing, the people from
Yes,
Africa, the people from Europe, Serbia, whoever it is, Ireland, I would love to see the Irish just come up all of a sudden, Irish people. But right now, they've got their own problems with immigration and all that kind of stuff. And the world is such a really on a knife edge just now. There's all kinds of political blocs coming together. NATO are looking at perhaps a war with Russia. You've got Israel attacking Iran. This is the world's an unstable place. And
it's
here's the
in.
thing, Gordon. This is the thing we must remember. I just want to make this point. As Scotland changes, other countries are changing, even England. And these changing forces can actually benefit the Scottish independence campaign. Because right now, a lot of people in England are, and we spoke about this before, the ID, the virtual ID you're going to have,
Mm-hmm.
nobody wants that. Everybody can see what's going on here. But that could be the straw that breaks the back of England. And we've already seen the Union flag being destroyed and the St. George's one replacing it. That's giving people a certain sense of place. And
Yeah.
that's what's happening in Scotland.
Well,
Um, it's working in our favour.
well, in England, definitely, especially in the south, the biggest concern of most people is illegal migration because they're being swamped, and you can understand that as an issue there for them, right? But this ID system that the Labour Party is proposing, this so-called Brit card, which is basically a virtual identity card, which we will all be issued with, is supposed to make it easier to identify illegal migrants who are working illegally, because they're technically not going to be allowed to work unless they can produce one of these, except that none of the people who are illegally here and working illegally here and perhaps in England have any identification papers at all. And they're still being employed. And the British state can prove that they don't have documents right now, and yet there's not enough enforcement. Now, this is the problem. You can create legislation, but unless you've got the manpower to actually enforce it, it's utterly meaningless. It's no dressing, and it does nothing for the people in Scotland whatsoever, because we don't have a problem with it anyway. In fact, we
No,
have
we
the real
don't.
problem. We need people, and we don't have them.
Gordon, I think the narrative we're being spun that England is rioting. I don't think that's the case. I think there's news in England we don't get. They don't even get themselves. Like in communities, Muslims are working together with Christians and secular and all kinds of things because of their neighbour. When I hear even if a black guy who's come here from Africa, but I hear him speaking in a Glasgow accent, I immediately feel akin to that guy because he's talking about a curry and doing the road and he speaks like me. That's enough for me. That he is welcome here if he contributes and chips in to what we're about. And most
Yep.
people do. They come to Scotland and they love how we are. It's a
Yes.
good place to come for anyone in the world. They always say we're a friendly bunch, and we've got to use that. Immigration's a good thing, a very good thing. We need it. We need it
People
for our.
migrate inwards, but they also migrate outwards. There's a
Aye,
balance to be struck. You need some in, you need some out, and that's the way it works. And some countries need more immigration than others. Scotland is one of those. We are very different from England. Our entire economic system is different. It's much more mixed here. We don't depend entirely on white collar workers. We're not all sitting watching computers. Many people are doing practical, functional jobs which are vitally important, that keep the fabric of society together and provide services and goods that people actually need. That's a proper economy, not this thing that Margaret Thatcher created, where she destroyed all the industries and meant that everybody was either selling burgers to each other or insurance. And that was essentially what the British economy became because of Thatcher. Scotland's
yeah.
completely different. It's actually recovered a lot from the damage Thatcher did, amazingly, and has created new industries. But it's a tough battle.
I don't know. Up here in the Highlands, I think we're still living the legacy of Thatcher. We're still a Victorian country in terms of roads and infrastructure. And we're getting these modern Lego houses getting built all over the place. Nobody's buying them, even, Gordon. Nobody's got the money.
Well,
So what
certainly
are they doing?
no local people could buy them. Only
No,
migrants from the wealthy south could afford it.
Gordon, can I let you into a secret? Even they're not coming up to buy them.
No,
Nope.
so they're just lying.
Airbnb. Airbnb will take them.
Oh God! Right, so
I know.
they're gonna become rentals for
Yeah,
people on holiday in the
yeah.
Highlands.
Thanks, Kate Forbes. You know, we told her.
Yeah,
The whole community told her. And now we wonder why she's not standing again for the seat in 2026 because she's
well,
no chance of winning it. She's no
I
chance.
wasn't I wasn't surprised when she said she was stepping down, and I don't think anybody will mourn her departure
No,
in
not here
terms of
anyway. No.
uh, yeah, politics in Scotland. However, I mean, to return to the theme a little bit, um, as you say, we've reached, I think, a threshold in terms of, as a people, we've reached a threshold. All of the things that we've tried in order to gain our liberation have failed. Our politicians have failed. Our political parties have failed. The system of asking England for its approval to have a referendum has failed. And there is no other recourse now, since the political class has failed and cannot gain us our independence back, that it has to be the people who do it. And Craig Murray made a very good point, and that is that under the UN Charter, and one of the first things the UN Charter says is that peoples have a right to self-determination, not countries, people. And
Yeah.
it's peoples themselves who are, ethnically and socially cohesive as a unitary group of people. They have the right to self-determination, and that means us, all of us, every single one of us, no matter what our political views are, in Scotland, we are sovereign. The king isn't sovereign. The king isn't the king of Scotland. We don't have to bow and scrape to him. We can make our own decisions. And that has always been the case, even after the union was formed. That was the precondition, that our sovereignty was intact for all time coming. And it remains that way. So we have the power to do it. We've always had it. We've just been told that we can't do that. We've been told by our politicians, we've been told by England, we've been told by everybody else that we can't do it. That just makes me want to do it even more when people say I can't do something.
Well, you're right, Gordon. We've been gaslit all our lives, thinking, and we've been psychologically manipulated, a lot of us. And somebody says, well, we're part of this, we've been tarnished with this colonial mindset because we're talking about it. But don't know how it gets to that one. But I do know that Scotland as a nation has been psychologically damaged. We are on, right now, Scotland is on antidepressants, most of us, the whole country. We're wondering what the future is. We're not wanting to spend money because we're scared that the energy prices are going to go up this winter. Winter's coming. It's a bit colder today, Gordon. Winter's coming. More fuel, more bills. Come next May, or whenever the election is, the debt that people will have incurred will be so bad that you might even see looting in shops. We've got nothing in that shop in Drumnadrochit. The shelves are empty. You've got to go into town, Inverness. There's no petrol in the pumps.
Seriously,
We're seeing a real onslaught to people's ability to get petrol to go to work, to eat food, to survive. Our water is getting tarnished. This energy company that's in Loch Ness and down the further side, dams getting built everywhere. Our countryside, we can't even go to the hills, but we're seeing we can't escape anywhere. And when it comes to that point, Gordon, that's when people get off their seats and people go, I can't take any more of this. I can't take any more. I've got to do something. And when it's survival, when people have to survive, they get out of their houses and they do things. And something that Alf Baird said, there's a cost. There's a cost to colonization.
Oh, yeah.
And we have paid too much in our in cash terms, in money terms, in freedom terms, in psychological terms. We have paid enough, Gordon. And now we're at this point. I honestly think we're at this point where if this Labour government, and by the way, Keir Starmer was interviewed, I think yesterday, he's in Scotland, and asked about would he give Scotland a referendum. Who cares what he says? Who in there? He's not worth worrying about, Gordon. He is a nobody. He is a nonsense. Because the people, when the people are sovereign and they get together, we'll trample over Keir Starmer and his likes. And that's what we can do. If we recognise that we are sovereign people and we have the highest political authority, then we can do anything we want to.
I don't think Norrie people really understand exactly how unique Scotland's political system actually is. Its constitutional system is almost unique. There are very, very few countries in the world.
It's abnormal, Gordon.
The people have the sovereignty. This is a popular sovereignty of the people. It's not a king. It's not a kingdom. It's not a meritocracy. It's not, it's how much money you have. It's about everybody and what they want. And what they want is not being provided at the moment by politics. It's being aided and abetted by a media which is essentially completely hostile to Scotland leaving the Union, entirely captured by the British state. We don't have a free media. We have us. We have the national. That is it. That's all we've got. So we have to make the most of what we have. But the one thing we have is unique sovereignty. Nobody else I know of in Europe has it. Very few countries.
What we have, Gordon, I wouldn't worry, fixate on the BBC and the media. We know all this. We know that. We know what we've not got. But we do. What we've got to concentrate on what is we have got. We've got this forum on YouTube that can
Yeah.
absolutely destroy the myths that are going out there. Two people just talking, two people giving their knowledge and their thoughts to other people to pass on. That's what we're doing. We hope people can pass on all this stuff that we talk about and have
Yeah.
the license to talk openly and freely because we're doing it. We're leading the way. Now,
I think we
that's
need
what we
to.
have got, Gordon. That's what we have got. And if we cherish what we've got and we shine it and we magic it to a great detail,
Yeah.
we can be influencers as well.
Well, the thing is, in modern terminology, we'd be classed as influencers. If this was a few hundred years ago, we would be political evangelists because what we're preaching is a heresy. You know, it's something you should never be talked about or contemplated. Whoa,
Correct.
using your political freedoms, the idea of using your democratic rights. Oh, no, you mustn't do that. It's this whole, oh, we better know kind of attitude that Scotland has been told to have all these centuries.
Yes. Yes.
Nonsense. But for us, we're preaching really because we're trying to show people that it's not scary. Being independent is not the big scary bogeyman. It's the thing that's going to make your life better, much, much better, not worse. The worse is the thing that you've got now, and it's going to get much worse. The British state is eating itself. It's using up all its internal resources, in other words, our resources, to keep its shakiness in England afloat because it has nothing. It has nothing to give. There's no way to expand its economy other than by taking stuff from our economy, which we do not need for. So when a country like the UK is eating itself, you don't want to stay in it because you're going to get gobbled up with it. All your resources will disappear. You'll have nothing left to run your country on. And
That's
we
right.
need to be before this gets any worse. That is basically my view.
Brilliant, Gordon. The only thing I could add to that is that independence is normal. It's a normal course of action. And we're in an abnormal situation here that we don't get our human rights are being eroded, scrapped. Our health, our psychological standing is being damaged so much being in this union. It's so much so that we fail to look out our own windows and look at the damage in our own communities and ask the big question, who's responsible for that?
Yeah.
And once you start thinking, Scotland could have a Scottish business, a Scottish home building unit, a massive one. We could have, we could get rid of Trident. That saves us a hell of a lot of cash. We can get our farmers back growing proper food. We'd be healthy again. We could look after our water with new regulations so that we're all safe. That's the alternative to this rubbish we're going through right now.
We don't need to be the engine room for England's survival because that's what we've become. England is using us as a power source, a battery to power their dying economy. We're like the Duracell bunny of the United Kingdom. Right? We keep it moving with our energy, right? But we don't get anything for that. We just have it taken from us, you know.
Yeah.
Okay, sorry, just a phone call came in there. Sorry
I
about
know.
that.
I'm on do not disturb mode.
Well, Norrie. Yeah.
I know.
Well, listen,
We've got 2 minutes, Gordon, a couple of minutes left, and the message has to go out there. Join up your thinking with like-minded people. Get out of your houses and talk to people. You'll find that they are in the same boat as you. They're struggling. Everybody's struggling. Gordon, I said a couple of weeks ago, there's a chap up the road with a £600,000 house, and it's now down to 400,000, and he still can't sell it.
there
Do
you go.
you think he's worse off than me or you? He's not. He's in the same situation where the markets have left him high and dry.
Yeah, because the market was overinflated and he bought at the height of it, which is the stupidest thing you can do. But anyway, that aside, was one thing I wanted to say, Norrie, before we close the show out, and you mentioned it right at the beginning, which is that we are currently getting about 3,500 views on each show just now. Let's get all of our viewers out there to spread this as wide as possible, to share it as widely as possible, to comment, to ring the notification bell, to do everything that they can possibly do to bump this up into the tens of thousands. Because at one time years ago, I had over 500,000 views on my channel before it was massaged by the so-called algorithm. So it's possible. And that this show is gaining popularity and traction all the time. So
Oh, yeah,
let's make it even.
Gordon, we're at the point where people are looking and need a new media, and one that's friendly to them, one that talks their language. We don't get any payment from this. We don't get any grandeur from this. This is not for any baubles. This is just for freedom alone, as somebody once said in a famous quote. And as long as there's 100 of us, Gordon, talking away, we'll never die.
No. And in fact, there's far more than 100 of us.
I know, just using a quote.
I know what you mean, yes. So anyway, listen, that's a great way to end the show today, Norrie. It's been a cracker, and I hope these shows get better and better. And everybody out there, share like crazy, comment, like, subscribe, and just do everything you can to
share.
every other medium. That's it from I was going to say from Inde-Car. That's it from How to Take It.
I know. From us, Gordon. Listen, we'll catch up next week, which I'll have more stuff to talk about. I'll be going out and about, finding views of people and taking them back, and I'll tell you about what I see, Gordon, because sometimes talking to ordinary people is enlightening.
Yeah, I agree. Anyway, thank you for watching, everybody, and we'll see you next
week. All the best, folks.
Friday morning. Bye for now.
Bye for now. Cheers, Gordon.
Cheers.